You know, I'll come out and say it, Skids is not that obscure. Like, sure, he didn't appear in a lot of fiction, but he had an Alternators release, regular G1 reissues, and was the best G1 Carbot smoked sexily, as well as the Generations and Legends of the Car redeco referencing a non-insignificant role in the IDW comics. He was a character in Marvel too, but you know, he didn't talk in the show that this whole franchise revolves around, so his ass is irrelevant, and we made his design worse, fuck you. It is somewhat funny though, since his tech specs describe him as being a fellow who spends too much time in his head, driving around Earth and studying humans. He seems like the kind of guy to stand quietly in the back, keeping to himself. He probably listens to Creep a lot. His perceived obscurity preceded him so much that it motivated enough oxymoronic attention to allow for 2 new major molds to be made of the character. Now, keen-eyed observers, exception to the colorblind, might notice that these 2 feature a lot less blue than you might recall Skids sporting. And that is because these are redecos. I'm getting to the point where a new head isn't enough to be a retool for me. Based on Diaclone predecessors. Yeah, plural. They fucking loved this guy on Diaclone, probably because he was the best of the Carbots. In fact, the MP has been so successful that we've gotten it in all major Diaclone decos. They've redecoed this mold as much as they've redecoed MP44. And here we have Reboost and CrossCut respectively outshining Skids himself. Someday I really gotta get that Timelines Dia burnout so they can bully G1 Skids
and then he
like,
takes your
shove a
future
broom
wife
up
and
his ass or
impregnates her.
something. Now let me be clear in saying that this isn't a comparison between these two as much as it is a 2-for-1 special review. I'm not interested in discussing the intricacies of comparing mainline to Masterpiece and which is the better grab, because one of these is obviously just the better grab. Masterpiece Skids was a curved ball and his out-of-the-gate companion Twisted Mind. Coming out as a licensed Honda City R and designed by the man who designed the original Diaclone release, every part of his car mode is exquisitely crafted. Something about me and my fucked up evil mind is I really enjoy realistic alt modes on my Transformers. Not necessarily licensed, just ones featuring a lot of realistic detailing, and Reboost sports a heap of... The more you hold this guy in your hand, the more you can really see every piece of loving detail added. The Honda City R was Ono's first car, and you can really see that shine through. At least I think it is. I don't know, I heard it from this homeless beggar named Link Frostimus or something. I'm not sure. That boy can transform his figure, though, I'll tell you what. From silver-painted mirrors to detailed door handles, gas hinges, multiple logos, subpar engineered detail, whatever, who cares, to wonderfully rendered clear headlights, this thing is a marvel in hand under the light of our ever-expanding sun. I'm a slut for tinted windows, and every surface of this vehicle is coated in some durable-feeling red glossy paint. This cat is entirely kibbleless too. The only possible clue of the robot mode is his paws being visible on the bottom from a straight angle side shot, but like, whatever. He rolls quite well too, especially for not having rubber wheels. This plastic shit isn't honestly that bad. Maybe the ocean would be a lot cooler if those islands just grew a little bit more. Oh. This vehicle does feature some opening doors, leading to nowhere. It requires some dicking with the joints, although it's not really a single swivel, it's just like a slider to manage. Still, it's very much appreciated. With some more fiddling, you can get the trunk open too. There's some handy weapon storage to happen here, but you can't store everything. See, Reboost is fucking cool like that, and comes with even more than Skids did. Relevant to the car mode is this little scooter. It's something that came with the Honda City R, which makes me very envious for an economy where you can allow cars to come with just, you know, packing scooters in case the car didn't fill you up. You can also get this clear minifigure in reference to the vintage Dionauts. It's just the MP Spike, but clear. I already lost an arm. I'm not too focused on finding it. It is nice and appreciated. I'm just glad it didn't inflate the price. I have a crackpot theory this mold was sculpted and designed as the Honda City R Reboost first, and then made into Skids for the main release. I have nothing to back this up other than vibes. They just seem to care about him so much more than Skids. I'll go to it more in robot mode, but there's a lot of sculpted detail on Skids that doesn't get used as well as it does on this mold, because a lot of the sculpted detail is based on original sticker detailings. I recommend getting a part separator handy for this part. I don't think anything here is pegged in to an impossible extent. It's just nice to have, it makes your life a little bit easier. The transformation is really fun and comprehensive. Each part of the robot unfolds out of the car, completing its shape within a few simple movements. It's very elegant and speaks to the experience of Ono as a designer. It's also another transformation where once you work with something, you tend to finish it before working onto another piece. I never liked when a transformation had you half transform everything and only finish at the very end. As Masterpiece has become more exponentially expensive and its design philosophy has grown more unbearable with needless hoops and complexities, it's such a breath of fresh air to handle a toy so succinct and sophisticated in its design. The way the legs move especially is a highlight for me. The thighs having a hinge on themselves to turn outwards is a really inventive way in order to compress the lower body, as well as the legs being able to compress and decompress with only a few simple movements. I will say, it's only moderately more enjoyable going 2 robot mode than 2 car mode, because the way the arms get crumpled up and shoved into the torso, it's not bad, I just keep forgetting it. Will Smith keeps coming by and he wipes my memory on the regular. I tell him to cut that shit out, but he doesn't listen, and frankly, I don't feel in control of my life anymore. I know you're supposed to fold the mirrors in, I just prefer to leave. And in robot mode, we may explore the depths of depravity in the human soul through admiring the sculpt work on display. As aforementioned, this figure is able to better utilize the sculpt than Skids was able to through painting all the various mechanical details to be more in line with the original toy. These ridges on the thighs are references to the stickers on the original, the outer fronts of the calves are also references to sticker detailings, as well as these touches on the hips. And of course, on the shoulders, we have those stripes that could never really stay on my personal copy of Skids. Why the fuck did they apply the stickers like that? Here's an epic fun fact 2007 for you. The original Hasbro instructions for the G1 Skids just fucked up and didn't include the part where you're supposed to rotate the arms up. Me personally, I kinda dig the look of the lower set shoulders in the original toy, so I like to keep the arms at a bit of an in-between area on my personal display. I have seen people shit and fart and piss about the shoulders being a little bit far out on the MP. Me personally, it doesn't bother me. I don't expect my robots to be too strictly human proportioned. I have also seen notes about a lack of complete finish across the robot mode, with some areas being left as bare red plastic next to the painted red ones. I will have to say that the reds matched well enough for me. It doesn't bother me per se, but I can understand why it might be noticeable to others. Let's admire what's here, eh? The silver on the thighs plays well against contrasting red and blue, and the touches of yellow really give the design some dynamicism. Most of the sticker detailing I have pointed out thus far has gone mostly unused on the Skids version, which inspires my headcanon about the figure's development, despite the great prototype shown being shut the fuck up, okay? Who picked out this yellow? I don't think this is meant to represent the stickers from the original toy. Were these tiny yellow squares important to someone? I love how the transformation produces these fake backs of the car to fill in his shins. They hide away very well in the car mode and really aren't a pain in transformation. The windows also get painted on Reboost as opposed to Skids, who just left them completely unpainted. Reboost also features an original head sculpt, steeped in 80s mecha style. I love how he glares out from behind his helmet and face mask to the backdrop of his smoky windshield. I think it's cute imagining him needing to use his side mirrors to actually look behind him because his windshield makes it hard for him to see clearly. His thighs angle out ever so slightly, giving him a dynamic stance, and all the detail from his alt mode stands out front and center in the front of the car, making up his udders, and the rear end making up his calves. The only part of this figure that feels even a little bit flat and uninteresting is the inner parts of his calves. I wish the sculpting in this area would have popped more. If you peek onto this boy's bosom, you can find an Autobot symbol nestled in there, which is a tad bothersome to me for reasons I'll touch on a bit later. In truth, it's quite difficult to find much to criticize with this robot mode. It's executing upon its concept with splendor, and it looks amazing. The observation has been made that Skids, despite his period of release, is much more in line with the older MPs of the line rather than the newer, more slavishly tune-accurate releases. Which is to say it's good. However, a caveat with his design philosophy is he is missing on some of the more extravagant pieces of articulation that modern MPs often sport. Which isn't to say he's inarticulate. I believe he has a swivel hinge in the head, but I'm not entirely sure. It could also just be a ball joint with a limited range. Don't trust my word, I'm losing touch with reality. He has a waist swivel. Masterpiece Starscream doesn't have that. I'm never letting that go. God forbid we make a perfectly normal cut in the sculpt for a basic piece of articulation. This figure sports a hinge going around the wheel and a swivel at the base of the wheel for the shoulder. I wouldn't ordinarily list joints with such specificity, but I feel like it's potent to know given how it affects this figure's look during posing. Elbows, wrists, articulated hands, kick forward. I feel like the kick out could be better, but honestly, how often do you really need him doing the splits? Let's be real, hon. Solid foot pivots with some rocking back and forth. Reboost is lacking in the cocks and whistles that many modern MPs have, and if you're used to that setup, you might feel a lack of ab crunch or butterflies. And I can't deny that butterflies specifically could be nice. Not many show up here in Kansas, it's honestly kinda sad. I find that the articulation on Reboost and his companions is well enough to get some good poses, and what he does have interfaces well with the heat he's packing, and I don't mean his brain cell fire alarm nuclear reactor project in his aunt's gardening shed. Thankfully, his little cuck scooter isn't all that he comes with. Reboost comes with 3 guns, all references to different guns the original toy would have come with. My favorites are what I do intellectually call a 20/20 pew-pew in the long shooty. All of these fellas can attach either to the top or outer portions of his forearm, which is nothing short of fucking cool. I cannot say enough, however, just how big a fan I am of display options. Something as simple as this can really help push the toy's play value further. However, mine balls be shriveled in blue, for he can only hold 2 at a time. I really wish one of them would have been able to stack onto the other guns, or maybe he was able to store them in robot mode somewhere. Maybe even a way for them to clip onto his shoulder. That would have been rad. For a quick round of scale comparisons, here he is next to Optimus Prime, Optimus Prime, and Optimus Prime. And here he is, next to a collection of some other MP releases, official or unofficial, and I will say he fits wonderfully next to them, at least for an earlier MP-styled collector such as myself. No, I can't sympathize with people into the Megatune-accurate new wave grok Weezer time synth of the modern Masterpiece 3-piece collecting scene. All I can say is that I'm sure sometime soon enough, Provider Slop Daddy Fans Toys will produce one, and it'll be about like 4,619 pesos. Of course, Masterpiece collecting is expensive, and I fucking hate you, so this is the Legacy Evolution CrossCut. Yet another usage of the Legacy Skids mold. I swear to god, they always get some mileage out of this SOB. Legacy, Evolution, United, doesn't really matter, it's just one big toy line with 3 logos. CrossCut here sports an impressive amount of paint for a deluxe. Most of his body is covered in silver, the only items that are spared are parts not pertaining to the alt mode. And the grey plastic chosen ain't half bad, matching up well enough with the silver. Although I suppose it is worth saying that it feels more like an accenting shade, rather than a continuation of the silver, which I suppose it should technically be. The hollowness in his inner legs may be a bother to some, and truthfully they can be a bit of an eyesore, but I presume this was the material sacrificed for the paintwork done. CrossCut's head does attach to this little drink coaster that does complete the hood of the car in alt mode. I don't find it too bothersome myself, I don't think it's blocking too much in terms of head range, and it isn't unsightly enough for me to complain about. What I do find rather unsightly is this Autobot logo. I know CrossCut specifically is a Transformers canonization of a Diaclone deco, a la Delta Magnus or Magna Convoy, but it's always bothered me how Diaclone can't just be its own thing within the brand of Transformers. Everyone needs to be folded into this war and continuity, given the faction of who they will become. And weren't all the robots in Diaclone on the same team anyways? CrossCut, like MP Reboost before him, features all the kibble in the same spots, save for maybe one singular part of the car mode being in the calves instead of folded into the back. His thighs feature some sculpted detail, but not detail that matches his G1 stickers, which I guess isn't an issue, they don't have to do that, but it's not really a design I'm into, and it just reminds me of Stringy Fries. Why wouldn't you just do the sticker detailings? It was already there. The head sculpt is nicely done, and I think it's the only part of the toy aside from the stripes on the doors which gets this red paint, and it's rather sharp. Be careful around that shit. I'm serious, it can pierce your finger. Something very strange to me is just how low the windshield is placed on his back. It may as well just not be a design point anymore, it's just kibble. I don't understand why it isn't made to sit any higher. You can't even use the hinge to get it raised all that much. Even at its highest, it's still never really quite where I expect it to be. I feel like Skids' windshield hanging over his back is a pretty iconic look with his door wing, so to just not have it is very peculiar. CrossCut does feature many of the same accessories as his MP counterpart, as they are pulling from the same well of ideas. His twin shooties, his pew-pew, and his gay little axe. All of which, via the surviving Evo Fusion peg system, aka God's gift and Taunt the Humanity, can, aside from being held, connect to the top of his forearms, store on his back, or be armed onto the side of his calves. I've definitely seen better port layouts, but you can't really go wrong here, and I still have fun swapping parts around. And combining all 3 pieces, they may form this kind of offensive weapon thing. It's certainly something it can hold. I just think it'd be nicer if we could just remove this whole axe masquerading as a gun thing. Thank you. CrossCut's articulation for handling said axe is fairly decent. His arms can go up and down, and up and around this wheel. Via transformation joint, he also has a vertical butterfly that's occasionally quite annoying. It doesn't really peg in, and it's looser than his shoulder, so that's kind of donkey-doo-doo ass fart, but it does lead to some fun posing, so I guess it balances out. His head features some decent side-to-side waggle, but it has very little in terms of up and down looking. Every other joint is pretty normal generations affair, 90 at the elbows, 90 at the knees, and intense ankle pivots. CrossCut is featuring some solid but ultimately unimpressive articulation. I don't feel terribly limited with posing him, but there's definitely stuff I wish he could do. Generations has had an issue with lacking head movement for a while, and CrossCut is just another entry in that long list. He has a fair accessory count, none of it feels like useless bullshit, all's useful in play. His robot mode is nice, being well painted in some areas, even though he is a bit tubby around his midriff section, which isn't to my personal taste, nor is it like the MP. This transformation scheme is weird, because the design itself is solid, but it's never landed in execution. I can appreciate his experienced bottom arch that allows his legs to move up in a move that feels inspired by the Masterpiece's design, but nothing here wants to peg in. To this day, I cannot get the alt mode on this mold to sit together in one piece. It's always either the doors or the top that's popping off. It totally spoils the conversion for me, frankly. Perhaps I got QC fucked, but I feel like something just isn't the right length for the tabs to comfortably connect. Potentially around the top of the doors, they seem like they're trying to push the top of the car off when fully tabbed in, so the closest I can get is the car mode with the doors slightly ajar. After a subpar conversion, we are left with a nifty little vehicle. I'll say bluntly, I've never much liked the Sunbow G1 Skids car. It loses too much of the appeal of the Honda City Turbo and veers into generic soccer mom SUV territory. I think I lost a cousin to one of these things. The deco does a lot for this mold, though. It's to my understanding that the original Legacy Skids had the front grille section in silver, which looked very nasty and ends up with a figure that doesn't quite resemble Skids to me. CrossCut here is circumcised, and wisely avoids that issue by retaining the blackened front, of which more is common for Skids alt modes. In car mode, you retain usage of the 5mm ports previously found on his shins and back, now allocated to the backer end of the car and the top of the car. All weapons still port just fine to these ports, except the axe, which cannot be ported into the back end of the car, as the sides of it stop it from fully entering. You can also peg it into the front wheels. I forgot to mention these ports, but yeah, they're there. They're much more useful in this mode, though, than they are in robot mode. Worth mentioning that the Twin Blaster seems to be the only weapon that is blast effect compatible. The front of the car is incredibly well detailed, slathered in silver paint, elevating every edge, curve, and change in elevation. It's unfortunate that as you go to the back of the vehicle, you can watch the paint budget dry up every centimeter. I acknowledge that this is a practical budget constraint, but it's quite jarring to watch the car go from a crisp and sharply painted front to a consistently applied silver with a red stripe on the doors, to painting over the back and side windows and only half of it coated in silver, being the only part of the alt mode, not counting the wheels or clear windows, to be unpainted. Said windows and wheels are very nice. The blue tint contrasts very well against the reds. We need more Transformers willing to have colorful wheels. It really breathes vibrance and vigor into their designs. His Masterpiece counterpart has much more typical black wheels, and I would say these red ones are much more to my preference. Despite my disdain for the design and the actively dying paint budget, the vehicle is very well sculpted. There aren't many, if any, areas that I feel are left blank or without proper detailing. I'm particularly fond of this netted area near the front of the car, breathing a lot of very nice dimension into an otherwise pretty flat vehicular design. And these rearview windows are so crisp, I wish these would have gotten picked out in some paint. Although these exhaust pipes around its rear are small, listen, they're average. Here he is next to Prime, and Prime. He fits in well next to other Generations releases, of course, and he has no problem sitting next to Diaclone releases within that category. I must confess, however, I do not think he is nearly as nice as Legacy Overcharge or Generation Select Donkey Kong Guard, but I do suppose it's still a mold cut from the same side of the coin, so they will fit together just well enough. Next to the Masterpiece Reboost, however, I think we have an interesting discussion to be had. I've said before that this video isn't about measuring lengths between these two. The Masterpiece is always going to have more resources and opportunities to a Generations figure. I do, however, find that CrossCut in the Legacy Skids mold as a whole fails to match up to its Masterpiece counterparts in such a way that its contemporary Generations figures have been able to its Masterpiece counterparts. Despite me not having too many explicit complaints with CrossCut, and if anything having a good share of unadulterated appreciation for its attributes, I find this mold completely underwhelming. Though all he does well, he does not impress exceptionally. His paintwork is worth recognizing but left unfinished. His accessories numerable for his price point but generic in their usage, and his sculpt sharp but uninspired. Its transformation relies too heavily on clear plastic tabs, all pegging in within perfect alignment to each other, and I've never been able to truly see this alt mode as Skids. He is truly doing a Skids in his transformation, but not to the same grace or to the same success as the Masterpiece. I understand as a deluxe next to a Masterpiece, it's unfair to expect this toy to move in as many ways as its nearly commander-priced counterpart, but we've seen remarkable deluxes in our landscape and in the past accomplish the same level of brilliance as the MP mold. The Legacy mold is unremarkable. He's mid in the most biblically accurate sense of the word. The Masterpiece, on the other hand, stands as a beacon of engineering, able to thoughtfully and concisely move between modes for a perfectly executed alt and robot mode, all the while coming with a very useful and satisfactory amount of articulation and accessories. I wish Legacy could have better adapted some of this figure's ideas to Legacy Skids, as I do think it is an inspiration. If you want some recommendations because you can't fucking think for yourself, it's okay, it's fine. I need some talking to when it comes to purchases as well. Star Fox Adventures. Get the Masterpiece mold in any deco you want. They're all great. I will say that Skids kinda looks like a guy that lingers in public spaces hoping somebody will talk to him, and he gets really entitled about it when nobody does. He doesn't really utilize the sculpted detail on display, and generally just isn't my preferred look for the character. Legacy Skids as a mold is something I think could be nice on a discount. CrossCut is this mold's best deco for me. The silver is really doing it favors, but I would be lying if I'd said I didn't consider the MP the more worthy purchase. And I might just consider getting the Masterpiece CrossCut despite owning this figure. I suppose if you don't care as much if Skids is more like a third option butt dial for you, then the deluxe price point is all you really need to know, and for a deluxe it's not going to offend you. Diaclone is a well of inspired decos, and I am always excited to see it referenced, and if nothing else, it is really cool to get to see these characters have options to begin with. Skids himself might not be that obscure, or at least not anymore, but with how little attention Diaclone can get despite being so pivotal to Transformers history, I'm floored to see these characters getting so much demand. It's a better time now more than ever to be a Diaclone enjoyer, and can we stop giving them fucking faction logos? Yes, I'm still on this!